So in the last video we saw how we can add an address to our order. So if you can just go ahead and try that again. We have that item, we add that item to the cart, we proceed to checkout, and here's our checkout form. And I went ahead and did a lot of modifications here. So I went ahead and removed or just commented out the select buttons because the implementation of the functionality of those buttons was quite challenging, or it is just a good practice to let the user or the customer add in an address every time they make a purchase to make things easy. That is according to my opinion. So this is what I did. This is the first form that we commented out, and here are our two checkout boxes that we commented out. So in this video what you're going to do is handle the payments, and we are going to be using Stripe for this. So go ahead and into your browser, go ahead and go to stripe.com and sign in. If you don't have an account, just go ahead and create your account, and this is where you will be redirected to your dashboard, or you can choose it an option to redirect to the dashboard on the top right corner. So go ahead and sign in and make sure you verify your account. So inside your dashboard, it is where we are going to find our API keys, but we'll come to that in a short while. So make sure you create that account. So inside our code, what we need to do is create a new file, payment.html, and inside payment.html we're just going to go with everything from the checkout page and paste everything there. And there's quite a lot we don't need crispy forms, and we can get rid of our two forms there. Get rid of the first form and the second form. So we have the second form there. We can clean that up, and this div of column medium form, this is where we'll output our, or we'll handle our coupon or adding the discount codes. So we'll do that in a separate video, but you can just keep it there. So inside here, let's see, you can output a h1 tag. So inside there, let's type in output h1 tag there and say this is where we'll put our credit card or our credit card number. And let me just add in some text so that we see what we're working on. And inside our views, we'll need a payment view. So create a class of payment view, which will inherit from the generic API view, and we define a get method, takes in self, so self arguments and keyword arguments. Then here we just return a render of self dot request, then our template, which is payment.html, like that. So we have our render method. Then we bring our view inside of URLs, and below the order summary we paste that there and paste it there. So we have our payment view, and if you remember, inside our checkout view we had two payment options. So inside here, when we are passing in the payment URL, we need to add another parameter that takes in the payment option, which is just either Stripe or PayPal for now. So our URLs are done, and we can come back and check this out. So if you go to payment slash Stripe for now, this is what we get, and in here is where we want to render out the card element. So go to the Stripe documentation, which is just going to be stripe.com/docs/stripe.js, and I'll make sure I'll link everything in the description section below. So here you have our document, and this is essentially what you want. And in here we output, or we can enter in our card and submit that payment. And as you can see, there's a little bit of validation there. So there's quite a lot in here, but what you need to do to start with is to output this card element. So we'll start off with the HTML, and it is just a basic form with a script tag that references the PayPal or the Stripe API. So above our credit card H1 is where we want to output our form, and I'll just tab everything in, and we can get rid of that and place it on top there and make sure that it is tabbed in correctly. So we have our form and the action. We can get rid of the action, the method status post, and let it have the ID of payment form. So in here, inside the card element, it is where we are going to output this card here. So if you can just go, this is where we'll output the card, and I'll get rid of that. And inside the second div, it is where we output the errors. So we have our button, and we can output the button and let it be in the same div. So if we go back, we have our HTML in place. Then for our CSS, we can grab that CSS, click there to copy, and up top above the script, we can add a style tag and paste everything there, and get rid of those lines there, close everything out, and come back and get the JavaScript. So we can get all the 70 lines, copy everything, come back, and at the bottom you can specify a script tag and paste everything there. So inside here we have our variable of Stripe, which is just going to call the Stripe module, and make sure you have Stripe installed. So go ahead and type pip install Stripe if you haven't installed Stripe already. So we have our Stripe, and then we call on Stripe and pass in the primary key, or not the primary key, the public key of that will reference our API. So we have that in place. And then this is just some custom styling. Then we have our card element. We have our variable card, which we'll call elements.create, then pass in the style there. Then it will mount our card. Then this is our handle change method, and it will check if there are any errors. That is what is. So if there are any errors, then it will output those errors there. Then we have our form, which gets the element by ID of form that we pasted up top there. So if there is an error, I'll just want to console.log e error, so result.error there. And if there's no error, then we call Stripe token handler and pass in the token, which we'll use to charge the customer. So the Stripe token handler is this function up top at the bottom here. Then at the end, we just submit that data, and we'll make sure to get it inside our view. So we can go back and check what we got. So if we refresh now, we see we have this credit card not showing here. So we can go ahead and style that, or make sure to keep the button outside the element so that you can see it. So we have our button and the card element. So the div with the ID of card element, I'm going to give it the same class so that you can style it. And we have our form with a class of or ID of payment form, which we're just going to convert that into a class as well. So we have the payment form there, and at the bottom we can specify the payment form and specify the width as just 100%. Then we can specify our card element as having the width the same width, so width of 100%. And for the button, we might want to add our custom styling, give it a class of button dash info, so info there, and then give it a class of, let's say, submit dash btn. Then we'll copy that and paste it there. So submit btn, or what you can do is say the payment form, the submit button, and the card element. So all of those have the same styling, and we can get rid of those to avoid repeating ourselves a lot here. So if you can come back and check, refresh, now we have our card element showing there and the button. So let's go ahead and clean that up, get rid of our h1 tag there, and get rid of our paragraph tag there, bring the button up close, then refresh. Now we have our button. Then on the form row, we can specify the payment form, or it should be the form row, yeah, not the payment form. So the class of form dash row, refresh. So we have that, and we can give a margin of, let's say, 2 em. Refresh. Now we're getting that error. Let's get rid of that and refresh back. The styling isn't great, or we can do a padding on the form row. So the div with form row, we can add a padding of, let's say, 2 em. Yeah, come back and check. We have the div of form row which has the button and the card element. Refresh. Now that looks better. So what we want to do is, if we submit this information right now, nothing is going to happen. So to do that, we'll need to handle that in our view and specify the type of the button as submit, and make sure, since we are submitting the form, we are passing in a CSRF token. Now inside our views, we can go ahead and define a post method. So define post, takes in the exact same parameters, self arguments and keyword arguments, and what you need to do is just print self dot request dot post for now, and we'll see how that looks like, and then we return a redirect. So return redirect to, let's say, it was payment, and remember we have an extra parameter in there which is the payment option. So payment underscore option, we'll just leave it as Stripe for now, since we are dealing with Stripe. Make sure we had that as payment option, so cross check that, and it is payment option. Okay, so inside our views, we'll just print out the request post. So we can go ahead and check our form to make sure that everything is right. Our method of post, cool. So come back and refresh, and you can go ahead and use dummy Stripe dummy credit card, which is just 42424 times, and you can use that for your testing. And if we submit that, nothing is happening right now. So if we check, inspect our terminal here, we've submitted everything and nope, nothing is working. So payment option, check that inside our views. So for our URLs, the payment option, it is Stripe. Inside our views, redirect to the payment, then payment option as Stripe. So reverse for payment with keyword argument not found. You can go ahead and cancel that. Refresh everything and try to submit it again. So we have our dummy credit card in there. Submit. Now this error is coming off of our URLs. So we have payment there and the name is payment. So we can copy that and make sure we specify that correctly inside our URLs. So our payment option is Stripe. Now let's try that again. Hopefully it works this time. So 424242, and seems like it worked. So here we have our query dictionary and we are getting our CSS middleware token, and the Stripe token, it is essentially a representation of the credit card that we added in, and this is what Stripe will use to charge that specific customer. So to start off, we'll start by creating a customer, and inside the documentation, and Stripe has really some good documentation. So if you go to Stripe docs/API/customers, again I'll link this in the description below. So we are going to check on how we can create a customer, and to do that we'll need to import Stripe and set the Stripe API key. So copy that, and this is your Stripe API key. So make sure you're using a Stripe API key, and I'll make sure I take this down once I push this video live. So inside the payment view, we need to, well, in the post method, we can create that charge there. So first things first, we need to import Stripe, and make sure you've imported Stripe and installed Stripe correctly. So just go ahead and type pip install Stripe, and everything is sorted. And instead of outputting the Stripe API key like this, we can do that with environment variables, but I'm not going to do that for now. So if we go back to our payment view, we have our Stripe API key set in place, and when we're creating the customer, we can create the email associated with that customer, which is just going to come from the email of the currently logged in user. So self request user email, and we have our description there, which is just the name. So I'll keep that as the username. So that is self.request.user.username, and then we can have our source. And if you go to the documentation, it recommends that you do that when you're creating the charge. So if you go to the charges and create the charge, you see it's where we're getting the source in here. So I like to do it on the customer. So our source is that Stripe token that we got from the request data. So that will come from the self.request.post, and we saw that it was Stripe token, the key to that variable or that item in the dictionary. So we have the email and the description there, and if we create or if we submit this data, it will go ahead and create that specific customer. So we can go ahead and test this out. So if we come and refresh and pass in our dummy credit card number and submit, So if you go to our dashboard and check on the customers, we should get a new customer created. So this customer was created and it is this customer. So I did this a few times, that's why you're getting this customers right here, but this is our customer which is created. Then we'll need to go ahead and create our charge. So let's go ahead and copy that, and when we're creating the charge, so I'll paste that there. And when we're creating the charge, so we'll need to pass that customer that we created into our charge so that we can charge a specific customer. So our customer, it is that variable there, and we can call this charge. Then stripe, which we just call stripe.charge.create. Then our amount, we can get that from the order itself, which is that exact same call there. So inside our post method, we can paste our order there and get rid of the print statement. So for the amount, we'll just get that from the total amount of the order. So order dot get underscore total, and remember that is the method that we defined on the order itself. So we have get total there, and so for the amount, we'll get that amount. And since this amount is in pennies, we'll need to multiply that with 100. So that 2000 that you saw there, it was $2. So the source, you can get rid of the source, and since we already passed the source inside the customer, we can just call customer in there. So we can say the customer is that customer that we created, and the description, let's say just test payment for Butex online. So, and after that we'll return a redirect. So let's say return a redirect to home, and we might want to add a message, so we can copy that. And before returning the redirect, we have our message there, self.request. Then let's say payment was successful, and we can get rid of that extra parameter there, and everything looks fine. So if we come back into refresh, it's taking its time to load. So I'm really running on a slow machine here, so if you can just put up with me, it's good. So we can go ahead and put in the credit card number there, specify payment, and our payment was successful. If we go back to our dashboard and into the payments, now we see we are getting this payment, and it is just right now 23.51. Yeah, so everything seems to be working out correctly, but what if we're getting any errors? And we haven't done any provisions for any errors. So Stripe has some documentation for handling any errors. So if we go to handling errors, what we need is this, and you can go ahead and read through all those, of course, which I've read for you, but all we need is that. So inside our post method, where we're creating the customer and the charge, we'll wrap that in a try except method. So can copy everything and make sure we tab that in, and we will try to do all this. But before that, when we get the card error, which is just going to come from the error.message, we can cut that and see how we can output it. So in there we can say messages.info of self.request, and we'll pass in an S string for this and paste that there. So e.error.message, and you might want to return a redirect back home. So we'll just return a redirect to the home page, and we can copy that or say that. So copy that and specify that, get rid of that. And if we get an invalid request, so this is invalid request, also return a redirect home, paste that there. That is authentication error. So authentication error. And for connection error, and just say check your connection. And for the Stripe error, and this is just an error that comes off of Stripe. So let's say there was an error, please try again. And for the generic exception, or for the generic error, which just means that there's something wrong with our code, so let's say a serious error occurred, we were notified, like that. So notified. And let's go ahead and clean everything up. So clean that up, everything, get rid of the comments there. And so what we're going to try to do is create that customer and create the charge. So I'll cut that, and inside our try statement, I'm going to paste everything there. So tap that in and get rid of that. So that should handle it. Now we'll try to create our customer and get the amount, and everything should work out correctly. So if we do that, we need to also, since we are making a payment for that order, we need to update it to ordered as equal to true. So start the server again, and we have our order up top there, and where we're creating the charge, we need to set the order. So ordered equal to true. Then we set order dot save there. After that, then we return a redirect to home, and the payment was successful. So you can go ahead and try that, refresh everything. Now we have our order, so let's go ahead and complete the process, proceed to checkout. And what we want to do, if we continue to checkout, then let's go to the checkout. If we click that button and continue to checkout, then what I'll need to do is convert that into an anchor tag and specify the href as the URL of payment. So the href is, come on, I can't type today. So the name of that URL is payment, like that. So we have the payment URL, and inside there we have an extra parameter which is payment option. So we can specify the payment, or we can just say Stripe for now. So if you come back and refresh, now payment with reverse, so payment option. So what we can do is bring back everything, and we can specify a method on the view itself. So we have our button there, inside our views, we have our checkout view. So inside there, we have our payment option. So where we are checking if use default and saving that order. So in here, you can say if the payment option equals to Stripe, then we'll return a redirect to, let's say, payment, and the payment option is Stripe, and we can do that for PayPal. And if the payment option is P, then we have PayPal there, and we can get rid of that there. And else we can just say return, or we can copy that, tap that in, and just return a redirect to checkout. And we can pass in a message, but so we can return a redirect to checkout and also pass in a message. So we can say messages.info of self.request, then just say invalid payment option, and that should do it. So if we go to the checkout view, now everything is working correctly. Then we can add in an address, select a country, and add a zip code, select Stripe, and submit. So we see we are redirected to the Stripe payment view. So we can add in our credit card number there and submit that payment. And our payment was successful. And we see that we don't have any orders in our cart or any items in our cart. So it's back to zero. So everything seems okay for now, and in no way we are taking or we are keeping track of our payments. So to keep track of our payments, we'll need a payment model, and to do that, we're going to create our payment model. So plus payment, which is just going to be a model, the usual stuff, and in there we'll have a user associated with that payment, which is pretty much exactly the same as that. Paste that there. Then we have our user. Then for Stripe, we'll have a Stripe charge ID, which is just going to be a character field. So models.character field, and we can pass in maximum length as, let's say, 200. 200 is quite long, 100 for now. And for the charge, we'll have amount. We'll have the charge and amount, and the amount is also going to be a character field, so, or an integer field, but we'll keep it as a character field and specify the maximum length as 100 to be on the safe side. Then we can go ahead and define the string method and return self.user.username. So that should do it. And inside our order, we'll need a reference to that order or to that payment model. So we can add a key, which is just a reference to the payment model, and that needs to be payment, not models. And on delete, we'll set null and specify blank and null as true, because we don't want to delete the payment when the order, or we don't want to delete all the payments. We need to keep track of our payments. So let's go ahead and make the migrations. Stop the server there, make those migrations, migrate, and run the server there. So inside our views, we'll make sure that we have imported our payment, and which we don't. So inside our views, make sure we've imported our payment model. So we have our payment model up there, and for the payment view, when you are creating the amount, we also need to create the payment. So the payment is going to be an instance of that payment where the user is self.request.user, and what we had was Stripe charge ID and the amount. So we can copy that, and we need to make sure that that specific amount is the amount of the order. So the charge ID will come from the charge. So when creating the charge, then we access the ID of that. Then the amount, it is just going to be, let's say, this amount here. So paste that there. You can copy that and paste it there. So we have our amount and everything looks fine. So we can say payment.save, save that payment. And when we are setting ordered as true, we also need to set order.payment as that payment there, and say order.save. So let's go ahead and try this out, and inside our admin, we'll need to bring out our payment and register it. So we can register our payment model, and you can go ahead and specify the list display, which I'm not going to specify for now. So everything should work out correctly. I hope so. So run the server there, back to our views, creating the payment, the user, and the charge ID. So let's go ahead and complete the full process. We've added an item to the cart. Proceed to checkout, add an address, select any country, select a zip code, select Stripe, and go to the payment, complete the order, and submit the payment. And we might want to change that title there. So if we go to the home, now we have our payments, and if we go to that payment, we have our payment. The charge ID is the Stripe charge ID, and we have the amount. So as a last touch for this video is changing this to, say, complete your order. And there's quite a lot that comes with payment integration. You have to make sure you go to the documentation and read about PCI compliance. Of course, make sure you're familiar with that area, and just read through the documentation and make sure you can improve on areas that maybe I didn't do great as well, but I think that will do it for this video. So thanks again for watching this video. So if you like this video, make sure you leave a comment, let us know what you think. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.